Happy Friday mga katribu and welcome to another episode of Kalingang KaTribu Legal Diaries. I am Venice Bautista and today we are once again joined by Aranas Cruz, Arnetta Parker, and Faustino Law Office's Associate Lawyer, Attorney Alfred Campaño. Good afternoon, Attorney.
There. Hi, good afternoon, Ma'am
Hi.
Berings.
Hello, ayan. So our topic for today is the SOGIE Equality Bill because during the whole month of June, as we all know, we are celebrating Pride Month. So, ano bang scope and limitations itong SOGIE bill and why is it important for this month? Okay, so first of all, the first questions we have is what is SOGIE Equality Bill?
The SOGIE Equality Bill also is the short term, no, for your sexual orientation and gender identity expression equality bill. Basically, this is a series of bills, no, na pinapasa sa lower house and then sa lower and upper houses ng ating Congress, wherein it aims to introduce measures to prevent economic and itong mga tinatawag nating public accommodation related acts of discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. So pag sabi mong public accommodation, yan yung I think baka yung mga viewers dito are aware of yung nangyari kay Miss Gretchen Custodio Diaz. No? Yung kung saan when she was about to enter the restroom, no, of her choice because of how she identifies as a woman, and siya pinigilan siya, no, to enter the women's CR. Kasi nga syempre she is actually a transgender woman. Or trans woman, sorry.
Yes, okay. So is this just for the LGBTQIA plus community?
I don't think so, no, because while the goal, no, is the bill intends to provide affirmative action or affirmative relief, no, to the LGBTQIA plus community as a class. I don't think this is only the benefit is basically the concept of equality, because remember, the theory goes is that sexual orientation is a fluid concept, and sexual orientation and gender identity is a matter of how one identifies himself or herself, as the case may be. So I think the benefit here is the benefit really stems to everyone, because you're removing sexual orientation and gender identity as a valid standard to be treated differently, no, at least in the concept of economic rights and public, well, again, ito tinatawag na public accommodation related actions. Yan lang naman so far yung coverage ng equality bill na nakikita natin so far.
I see. So this applies for everyone. So bali inaalis natin yung gender and yung sexual orientation para bang maging pantay-pantay lahat, right, attorney?
Yes, so the benefit really is for everyone because it's equality, no? We're trying to approximate, if not ensure, equality at its purest sense.
I see. But isn't this like similar to the anti-discrimination bill that we have?
Now, I think during my readings, we have to be careful in trying to analyze this, because pag sinabi mo yung anti-discrimination, remember, this is a form of an anti-discrimination bill. Because remember, syempre, di ba, it's the removal of discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity is the standard that is being forwarded in SOGIE Equality. Now, we also have to distinguish this with the anti-discrimination bill that was discussed sometime in 2016 or 2017. Because if this is what you are referring to, no, in your question, then this is obviously not the same. Because the anti-discrimination bill then does not merely reinforces the concept of sex as one that you are of what you are born with. So yan yung so meaning the anti-discrimination bill in 2016 does not really recognize sexual orientation and gender identity as a matter of how one identifies himself, but rather tries to fixate only on what you are biologically, no, endowed with, if that's the proper word, no, biologically endowed with at the moment of birth. So, yun yung pagkakaiba niyan. However, if I'm not mistaken, there is a comprehensive, yung tinatawag na comprehensive anti-discrimination bill. Then in that sense, this is an attempt to cover, what the SOGIE bill attempts. Because in this new comprehensive anti-discrimination bill that was, I think, passed sa lower house last year, then makikita natin that there is a recognition of sexual orientation and gender identity. So I think in that sense, the question is, it's different to sa anti-discrimination bill 10, but it's more or less covered in the comprehensive anti-discrimination bill that is being debated right now.
Okay, so marami pang pwedeng debate na mangyari when it comes to these two pala. But yes, we'll maybe tackle that in a different episode. But for now, let's continue the discussion about this law that we have right now, or the bill, perhaps. So if passed, how can this law protect everyone?
Well, again, no, the protection really stems from removing gender identity or sexual orientation as a standard in creating policies. Because I think people need to understand that when it comes to creating policies, creating laws, the concept of equal protection must be discussed. Na kung saan you can only create classes, no, or you can only quote unquote validly discriminate if there is something that is inherently that there is something you are okay. Let me rephrase. Valid discrimination can only happen if there is a, we call this, there is a valid classification. No, there is this group that needs to be really treated differently. So the protection is the concept of the protection of the SOGIE bill is aimed at for promoting equality, because supposedly no one should be discriminated upon, no, based on sexual orientation, not just sex, no, but based on sexual orientation. That's the current trend towards in modern democracy. So hopefully that's what the Philippines is trying to move towards too.
That's correct. Nako, marami pa tayong tatalakayin, attorney, and I have pang questions. So for now, we'll take a short break. Legal Diaries will be back.
Fun and inspiring na kwentuhan? Sagot na yan ang programang Spotlight ng Daily Tribune. Makipagkwentuhan at kilalanin ng iba't ibang personalidad na kilala sa kani-kanilang larangan. Manood at makinig sa mga inspiring stories na kanilang ibabahagi kasama si Nina Ventura at Jojo Silvestre. Be ready ng mamangha at matuwa every Thursday alas 2 ng hapon dito lang sa Daily Tribune Facebook page at Tribune Now on YouTube. Alamin ang latest entertainment at sa mga paborito nyong celebrities kasama si Pocholo Concepcion sa programang What's Up. Makibanding at kwentuhan kasama ang mga kilalang personalidad sa entertainment industry. Sama-sama natin silang kilalanin at silipin ang makulay nilang mundo every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Kaya sit back and relax lang kayo mga katribu. Hanapin at ilike ang Daily Tribune Facebook page at Tribune Now on YouTube. Dahil sagot na namin ang masayang kwentuhan dito lang sa What's Up.
We are still with Attorney Alfred here. We were discussing about the scope of the SOGIE bill. So let's continue, Attorney. So where does this bill stand on marriage if it's, equality?
The short answer there is the SOGIE bill still does not really have any provision on trying to forward the availability of marriage, for the members of the LGBTQIA+ community. So in that sense, I think that's one of the criticisms that the SOGIE bill may face in the course of the debates regarding its passage. Because to me, for example, I think this absence of a provision on marriage is an attempt to balance or an attempt to appease or accommodate those people who still have a traditional view on what sexual orientation is all about. So meaning sila yung mga naniniwala that there are only two sexes, which is yung tinatawag natin under modern theory as your cisgender male and your cisgender female. So pag sabi mong cisgender, basically these are the people whose sexual orientation is aligned from what their sexes are in terms of biology. So meaning yung alam natin na lalaki at alam natin na babae.
Yeah.
So I think this is still an attempt to reconcile that. So I don't think the passage of the SOGIE bill will be a groundbreaking legislation as far as marriage is concerned, because even the bill itself and the proponents still recognize, according to them anyway, that a trans woman is still, a trans one, for example, is still a man in terms of the concept of marriage. But at least we can see here that you're trying to slowly chip away from the stronghold of these kinds of views, at least in certain aspects of society. In this case, yung mga economic rights mo. So you cannot be discriminated based on employment because, let's say, because of your sexual orientation. So meaning hindi ka nila pwedeng, for example, I think if ever this becomes a law, magiging issue yan on yung sa mga eskwelahan, right? Because remember, sa mga schools, some schools are actually religion-based. Yung mga Catholic schools na tinatawag natin, for example. So, with the passage of the bill, I think there's going to be an expected conflict between the right of these religious institutions to forward their views as opposed to hiring a member of the LGBTQIA+. Kasi syempre, supposedly, under the SOGIE bill, you cannot discriminate based on sexual orientation. So in that case, in my scenario a while ago, then the schools cannot not hire you just because you are gay, a lesbian, or kung ano man yung ibig sabihin, asexual, mahaba yung LGBTQIA, pansexual pa yung P, right? So LGBTQIA+. So we're going to see those kinds of challenges once we move forward.
Ayun. So, ito namang question na to, this is for the people who we see on Facebook or even, verbally sinasabi nila parang, this is disrespectful to my religion. What about my rights? Yung ganong sinasabi nila. So, clarify lang natin, attorney, will it take away the rights of other people?
The funny thing about that, the logic behind those kinds of views is
Kaya ba yan, attorney?
What about my rights? Honestly, I'm not seeing any reason why your rights, for example, or our rights as cisgender male or as cisgender female will be affected because of the passage of certain rights. Because ultimately, the point here is may mga certain interactions na kung saan hindi naman maapektuhan ng rights mo altogether. It doesn't mean, for example lang, let's take it to an extreme.
Yeah, okay.
Na if you allow gay marriage, for example, in the country, I am not seeing how it will affect your rights as a cisgender male or a cisgender female marrying each other. Because it does not mean that you cannot marry. Di ba? Yung parang in terms of the interaction, parang how exactly? That's the first question that needs to be addressed by people who uses this as an argument against SOGIE bill. Na parang what exactly are these rights that you are claiming that are affected or that will be taken away once SOGIE bill is passed? Because ultimately, yung banner statement na yan, na what about my rights, is basically the same label No, that's the same banner or the battle cry of misogynistic men who was actually fighting against equal rights of women no ang time na naglalaban ng equality is actually women.
Yes,
No?
yes.
So parang we have to look at the burden should be pushed on those dissenters kung iyan ang magiging panglaban nila na it will take away your right, because as far as I can see, your rights will still exist. Your rights will nevertheless still be protected even in the presence of SOGIE Bill. In fact, ang magiging issue talaga dyan is up to what kind of is ano yung extent ng protection that the law is actually that the law is that the intended law is trying to afford or accord this class of people in our society, because as I said a while ago, kung titignan mo yung SOGIE Bill, to me it's a soft, to me personally, it's
Yes.
soft hands na parang it's actually, to me, parang the benefit is short term if you're trying to change societal views on what sexual orientation is. Because ito mo yung nangyari kanina, di ba, in your question on marriage. If you're gonna analyze how the bill works, is, as I said a while ago, it attempts to accommodate traditional values on marriage. So parang ang mangyayari dyan is, it will now beg the question na bakit hindi mo maa-accommodate an equality in familial life for family matters, and at the same time you're recognizing the distinction in economic rights. So bakit hindi matopple down yung wall between that family rights as opposed to economic rights, when there is a recognition na they are disadvantaged, the LGBTQIA+ are disadvantaged in certain aspects of society. So bakit natin i-maintain, no? If we're moving forward, why do we maintain a valid discrimination in civil rights, for example, but not in economic rights? You get what I mean?
Yes.
I hope you get what I mean, no? Parang, ang point dyan is, the SOGIE Bill itself to me, is an introduction only to what a modern democracy aims to go to when it comes to handling or when it comes to accommodating the values of the LGBTQIA+. To me, it's a welcome development, but honestly, if I'm going to address it specifically, medyo mahina pa yan in terms of what it really aims to do.
Yes, that's true. Marami pa pwede i-cover. And so, yeah, basically, sinasabi ng attorney, before kayo magtanong sa kanya, mag-aral muna kayo.
Alam mo tayo.
Research.
Kasi it really kung titignan mo yung the most people who are dissenting towards who does not agree rather with the passage of a law on equality based on sexual orientation or gender identity, more often than not would be based on misconceptions, misunderstanding on either the concept of sex, the concept of sexual orientation, what gender identity is, and the importance of how one's own identification is relevant in the well-being of a person. So, in that regard, makikita mo dyan na at the root of the dissent is really, so far, I have yet to see an actual dissent that made sense. Because honestly, the dissent towards these kinds of equality is mostly rooted on prejudice.
Yes.
Until we address that, and sometimes you can address prejudice by, making waves instead of ripples. That's what I was hoping what this SOGIE Bill will turn into, no? It will snowball into something more. But right now, it's just a as a very
Mm.
small snowball.
Yeah, exactly. So ano po ba yung mga pros and cons? Like you said, marami pang kulang, marami pang pwedeng isakop yung bill na ito, no? But for now, what are the pros and cons of the SOGIE bill?
As I said, no, I think the pro of the SOGIE bill
Mm-hmm.
is really the introduction of the science with respect to sexual orientation and gender identity,
Mm-hmm.
and its integration in our structures, in our laws, no, and in our government. Na hopefully in time it will, magkakascade pababayan into individual to individual citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the main advantage there. That when you introduce it in the system, sooner or later, as we progress as a society, makikita mo dyan na na-adapt mo na yung values of equality. And na-accept na natin sila. Because at the very least, when you institutionalize the concept of sexual orientation and gender identity, similar to how we institutionalize equality for women or equality based on race, then nawala ata ang internet.
Now you're here, attorney.
Ayan. so, so when you institutionalize affirmative action, no, pag sabi ko kasi affirmative action is there is a disadvantaged class, and you create laws or you make legislations in order to put them at an equal footing, then sooner or later the citizens will accept that there really is equality for this group. At least that's the theory for affirmative action. So the benefit here is when you introduce this into the system, similar on how we fought racial inequality or how we fought for women's rights, then slowly but surely we can see in the future that there really is going to be a more open and accepting views on who the LGBTQIA+ communities are.
Mm-hmm.
As for the disadvantages, again, tulad ng sinabi ko kanina, I am not really seeing any disadvantage, and those dissent on who claims to have these disadvantages as a burden to show to me what these disadvantages are really in a discussion. One thing na nakikita ko, for example, in the internet is, nakita ko to, this is I think from kami.com.ph.
Mm-hmm.
Na sinabi na the law, supposedly, pag pinasa daw, could be used by the LGBTQIA+ community to threaten other people that may not agree to their terms. Now, if their fear is really gender-based discrimination, kasi parang iyan yung makikita mo eh. If you're going to look at foreign news, meron yung parang nangyayari na men have rights too. If you're familiar with that history. That is an interesting social study na kung tinitignan mo na parang as a response to the feminist movement.
Yes.
Pero kung titignan mo, yung approach na yon is, again, if there really is a fear of using this law to harass individuals, ganyan na ganyan din yung sinasabi nila eh on women, yung the criticism for example sa VAUSI, yung parang sinasabi na masyadong leaning towards women. Mga ganyan, no? And I think that's a whole discussion altogether. But my issue with that kind of disadvantage is, to me, just simply an attempt to protect their own advantages at the expense of a class.
Correct.
And to me, that is something that should not be accepted. Kasi kung ganyan ang magiging banner statement nila, if we rewind time, or we go back in history, and ang pinag-uusapan natin dito is equality for women, and then ang mangyayari dyan is, the analogy is, paano naman yung karapatan ko bilang lalaki? Di ba?
Yes, exactly.
Di ba? So parang the logic applies. The principle applies even here. So, these kinds of disadvantages, quote unquote, is basically rooted on an attempt to preserve values that more or less has
Benefits
been
them.
favorable to
Yes.
them in the past. So it's a threat to them anyway. Yan ang
Mm-mm.
nakikita ko. Unless, of course, obviously, this is a democracy, this is a debate, discussion, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Mm-mm.
And I am open to be convinced otherwise. But until now, I have not yet been convinced otherwise.
Yes. Hanggang ngayon, wala pang na dedebate si attorney ng maayos about this topic. So yan, if this bill has so much to offer, has so much to protect, no, where is it now, attorney? Like, ilang beses na itong nakikita natin sa headlines, right, na hindi pa rin to pasado. So, where is it now?
Well, unfortunately, no, the bill itself somehow is in limbo because obviously there is still strong dissent
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to legislature. So until now, unfortunately, it's still a bill. But hopefully, sooner or later, eh, it's passed. Pero kung makikita mo how controversial or how heavily discussed this is, because the bill itself is a record holder of the longest running bill in the Philippines. I'm not sure in
Wow.
the Philippines or at least in recent history, no.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something na oddly, is quite alarming. But at the end of the day, that is still part of the process. And as a lawyer, of course, I respect that process.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Thank you so much, attorney, for clarifying our questions. Kahit na medyo nawindang ka sa mga ibang questions.
I know.
Yeah, pero 'di ba, I mean, it's true naman. You made some great points and that we should all consider and think about, 'di ba? So thank you once again, Attorney Alfred, for your time. Do you have anything to say, to promote before we let you go?
Promote. Well, yun lang, read. Yeah.
There we
Pero
go.
consult your lawyer, pwede din, di ba?
All right. Read, basically research using proper citations, 'di ba? Proper
And proper
sources.
sources,
Yes.
correct?
There we go. Thank you, Attorney Alfred, for your time. And thank
Thank you
you
as well for having me.
also to our Katribus who are tuning in today. Once again, you can watch Legal Diaries every Fridays at 3:30 p.m. on Daily Tribune's Facebook page, also on Tribune Now on YouTube. Once again, I am Venice Bautista. This is Legal Diaries. Happy Friday!